everyone, Miss Melior here, and we're back with another video. Today, I'm going to be going over the responsible ways that you can clear out your wardrobe. We all get to a point where we feel like we just have clothes in our closet that we don't wear anymore and are just taking up space, and we would be mentally happier if we could just clear them out. But there is an irresponsible and a responsible way to do this, and I'm going to go through all of those now. I'm going to start with the worst thing that you can do for the environment when you're clearing out your wardrobe, and that is to package your clothes up, put them into a plastic trash bag, and throw them in the bin. Unfortunately, the Council for Textile Recycling reports that the average US citizen throws out 70 to 81 pounds of clothing per year. That's insane. 13 million tons of clothes end up in the landfill annually. Every single year, 13 million tons. There are a few problems with throwing your clothes away, and almost all of them can be traced back to the fact that you have microplastics woven into your clothes, which give them their elasticity. These microplastics can be released from the clothing, leached into the environment, and ingested by marine and other wildlife, which we could then ingest, and it's just not good to have the BPA chemical in your bloodstream. The other issue is that plastics don't decompose, so it takes 200 years for your clothing to break down in a landfill. It's just sitting there for 200 years, leaching harmful chemicals from the plastics. Not to mention that the dyes are toxic, and those dyes can be leached out into the environment and pollute the surrounding environment. So what can we do instead of throwing our clothes into the trash? Well, we can bring them to a bin in order to be recycled. This is the next best thing to throwing your clothes in the garbage bin. There are many textile collection points. You can do a quick Google search to find one in your area. Most likely, the fast fashion brand H&M will have a bin in one of their stores. Let's get into this. H&M is not responsible for recycling your clothes. They are just kindly volunteering their services to collect the clothing and then pass those textiles onto a company called iCollect. Now, iCollect is the company that actually does the textile recycling. Now, unfortunately, even H&M's sustainability report from 2016 states that only 0.7% of the materials used in new clothing was recycled. This is because fabrics break down over time, and so the quality is not as good when you try to go and reuse those same fibers. So they have to stitch in new they're called virgin fibers, in order to get the same quality and strength as previously. Even if you see a tag that says 100% recycled, for example, 100% recycled cotton, that doesn't mean that they took cotton, broke it down into fibers, and rewove it into this new article of clothing. What they're saying is they gathered scraps from the floor and recycled those scraps, those virgin fibers, into an item of clothing. It's not post-consumer, that's kind of the key. And most of the time when you're talking about recycling textiles, again, you're not talking about breaking them down into new fibers and reweaving them into new articles of clothing. You're talking about cutting them up into rags, putting them into insulation for walls, and the netting of carpet, really industrial purposes. Now, it's good that they're being reused, and these industrial needs need to be met, and they can meet them through the recycling of textiles, so it's not necessarily an entirely bad thing. It just means that recycling your textiles doesn't justify continuing to overbuy. Oh, and the most important thing that I want to mention in this section is if you do end up bringing your clothes to H&M to donate them, do not accept the discount. The whole reason that they are collecting your clothing is because they want to entice people to come into their store, and they offer 10 to 15% off discounts for every bag of clothes that you bring in. This is just perpetuating the buying cycle. Do not fall for it. Turn your clothes in and then respectfully decline the opportunity to shop from this really horrendous fast fashion brand. Another way to responsibly get rid of your clothes is to donate them to a charity or a secondhand store like Red Cross or Goodwill. These places like Goodwill will resell them to make a profit, and charitable organizations actually give the clothes to underprivileged people for free. Now, even these institutions get an overwhelming amount of clothes. They just don't know what to do with them. The Environmental Protection Agency, as of February 26th of this year, said that 84% of clothes donated still ends up being incinerated. This is really unfortunate because the alternative is selling these clothes to rag traders. Supposedly Goodwill and other secondhand stores or charities, after about 4 weeks of an item not being sold, will pass the item along to rag traders. Rag trading is a huge industry. It mostly occurs in the Middle East, North Africa, like Tunisia. And these rag traders are responsible for collecting donated clothes from all over the world. So sometimes they pay for the clothes, which is really great when it's charity selling them because they can make a bit of money in order to continue doing the wonderful work that they do. But most of the time they're getting these clothes for free just because people have such an overwhelming amount that they're willing to give the clothes to the rag traders to get them off their hands. So the rag traders get the clothes for a very small amount of money, and then they're able to sort all of the clothing based on quality, brand, material. I mean, it's just insane. They have huge factories where they're receiving just mountains of clothes and sorting them really precisely. They actually have entire stations where they're fixing up clothes, adding new buttons, cleaning shoes, and making them look new again. And once these clothes that are good enough to continue being worn, they're actually going to resell them back to the Western worlds like Europe and America to be resold in secondhand stores again. And then the clothes that they don't think can be resold, so clothes that aren't maybe name brand or are just a little less quality, they're going to sell them onto markets in Africa. And about 90% of secondhand store stock will end up going to rag traders, and then a majority of these items go to Africa. Now, after they're sold in Africa, only about 40% of the clothes that go to Africa end up being landfilled or burned. So this is a really great way for African countries to get clothes. However, some countries are suffering from this practice because their local businesses are having a hard time competing with the really cheap prices that these markets are offering our old clothes for. Some African countries have gone as far as to ban importing secondhand clothes altogether, which is something to consider. And then the third category of textile that the rag traders deal with is the completely unwearable, poor quality, just destroyed textiles or garments, and they will recycle these. So again, they'll cut them up into rags, they'll turn them into carpet padding, insulation. They can also turn it into spools of yarn to then sell to factories and industrial textile manufacturers to use this recycled yarn in some of their new clothing, put it into their new clothing, and they can also apparently turn textiles into some paper. Now, an even better thing to do with your clothing is to upcycle or recycle it yourself. If you're trying to take something out of your wardrobe, you can, of course, cut it up and use it for cleaning rags and then just stop buying cleaning rags altogether because they're going to get dirty anyways. They don't have to look cute. No one's going to see them. You know what I mean? Or upcycle an item or multiple items into a whole new piece of clothing so that you feel like it has a new life and it's not just taking up space in your wardrobe. You'll actually wear it. I have a ton of upcycle ideas on this channel and on my Instagram page, so check those out for some ideas on giving your clothes a little spruce up. Now, the absolute best way that you can clear out your wardrobe is to pass the clothing that you no longer want onto someone else for a whole new life. You can do this by reselling it on a few platforms like Facebook Marketplace, Depop, Etsy, Tradesy. There's so many. All you have to do is take a few photos of the item from various angles in good lighting, decide on a price, and then upload it to the platform and wait for people to message you asking if it's available. Maybe they have some additional questions you'll have to answer, and then if they don't live in the same city, you'll calculate shipping, drop it off at the post, or if they do live in the same city, pick a cafe near you and have them come and meet you and collect their new item. Another thing you can do is a clothing swap. This can be done with some friends of yours, or maybe there's a clothing swap event in your area. I just did an online clothing swap with a girl on Instagram. So she lives in Macedonia, one country over. I sent a bag of 3 items to her, and then she has sent me 3 items in return. This is a really fun way to not only get rid of clothes that you find you don't wear anymore, but to get clothes that are new and exciting and someone took the time to pick out for you. Of course, you can tell them what you're interested in, what your size is, etc. You can talk to them about it, but it's still really fun to see what they give you. And lastly, of course, you can pass your clothing on to family and friends, people who are similar size and interested in your clothes. It's a really great way for them to get something that's wearable, but they don't have to pay for. And of course, you are saving that clothing item from going to a landfill or being incinerated unnecessarily. Of course, I talk a lot about keeping your clothes alive for as long as possible with simple repairs and ways to revive old clothing. I actually have an entire video on that. If you want to check it out, I'll leave it in the description box. But no one is going to force you to keep clothing in your wardrobe that you just simply don't want there. So I would recommend starting with the best way to get rid of your clothes. And if it's just not possible, move on to the next best way and then end up with recycling it in a textile recycling facility. I hope you were able to find these tips useful and maybe learn something interesting along the way. Of course, if you need any additional help or have any additional questions, or maybe you know something that I don't, please leave them all down in the comment sections or DM me on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram as well for more information, fashion inspiration that is, of course, eco-friendly and sustainable. I am at Miss Melior, and I'm always excited to talk and see new faces. But that's all I have to say for now, so I will see you in next week's video. Bye!